Obama administration is really throwing down the gauntlet here in the high-stakes battle, saying that President Obama will not sign any bills that break the terms of their summer debt deal.
So I spoke with Congressman Paul Ryan just a little while ago and got his reaction to that from the White House. So we're welcoming this morning House Budget Committee Chairman Paul Ryan, who is joining us now. Good morning. Good to have you here, Congressman Ryan.
Morning, Martha. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just great. I want to read something to you that came out from the White House yesterday, which is a response, really, to your budget proposal. And here's what that letter to the House of Representatives and Senate leader says. Until the House of Representatives indicates that it will abide by last summer's agreement, the president will not be able to sign any appropriations bills. So that pretty much lays it out there. What's your reaction to that?
Look, what we're simply trying to do is get spending under control. The Budget Control Act has a ceiling on spending, and we propose to go about $19 billion below that ceiling. We're not going to have a government shutdown. We'll get ourselves to compromise at the reasonable levels of spending. But here's the deal, Martha. We can't keep spending all this money we don't have. We're borrowing 40 cents on the dollar, and what we're trying to show here in Washington is a little fiscal prudence and discipline. Unfortunately, the president is more interested in playing politics with that than anything else. I think that's really what this is.
Understood. But they're going to say that the deal that was made to raise the debt ceiling, and it had those subsequent sequestration parts of that built in, that if they didn't meet that deal that everybody agreed on, then certain cuts would kick in naturally. They're saying that you, presenting the budget that you presented, is now, they're going to call that obstructionist because you weren't willing to go along with the deal that was struck before.
No, not only are we going along with the deal that was struck before, we're showing how we would replace the sequester from occurring by cutting spending elsewhere in a smart way instead of just accrued across the board way, which will happen in January if we do nothing. We have the problem is the president's not showing what he would do to prevent this across-the-board cut from happening. The Senate announced again yesterday they're not going to do a budget again for the third year in a row. So we're showing leadership on how we will specifically prioritize spending in order to meet this deal, in order to conform to the Budget Control Act and do it in a smart way instead of this crude across-the-board way, or just ignoring it, which is what we think the White House is doing. They're not preparing for this sequester. They're pretending it doesn't exist. It does exist. It will happen. And we think we should be honest with people about that and show how we will prioritize spending cuts instead of letting the sequester cut across the board. That's exactly what our budget does, and that's what we're doing right now.
So the president was speaking about this in Elyria, Ohio yesterday, and of course all of this gets intertwined with election year politics as well, as you well know. So let's listen. He said, basically that we've tried it the Republican way and it didn't work. Here's what he said.
Instead of moderating their views even slightly, you now have Republicans in Washington, the ones running for president, proposing budgets that shower the wealthiest Americans with even more tax cuts. Folks like me don't need them. We're looking for them.
Your reaction?
I think the president doesn't have a record he can run on. He's gone hard to the left in this last 2 years. He didn't moderate, didn't compromise. And so he has no choice but to divide the country in order to distract the country. And unfortunately, it's very unpresidential, but that's what we're seeing. We're saying take away the tax shelters and loopholes that wealthy people use in order to lower everybody's tax rates. Guess what? A lot of Democrats agree with us. Erskine Bowles and the Fiscal Commission, this is what they propose to get the economy growing. So what we're showing in our budget is the seeds of a bipartisan compromise on how to best fix these problems. Problem is, it's with moderate Democrats, and the president's not a moderate Democrat. He's way out there on the left, playing partisan politics, trying to shift blame for his own failed policies. And I think that's just what more of this kind of campaign rhetoric we're going to have for. It's going to be a long 6 months, I'll just tell you that.
Well, he's not the only one who's upset with your plan. The Catholic Bishops' Conference has also come out and said that they don't like what the plan entails when it comes to cutting food stamps and also a child credit for illegal immigrants. What do you think about that?
Well, we've always said we should not be giving tax credits to people who are not here illegally. That's just following through on policy that's been pretty well responded to on a bipartisan basis. These are not all the Catholic bishops, and we just respectfully disagree. We think that quadrupling spending in this area has not succeeded to get people out of poverty. 1 in 6 people, Martha, are in poverty today. Poverty is at the highest rates it's been in a generation under the president's failed policies. And so what we're trying to do here is get people from welfare to work, just like we succeeded in doing when we reformed cash welfare in 1996. We want to take those ideas and reform these other welfare programs so that we don't keep people on welfare, but we get people from welfare to work into an upward mobile society, opportunity, prosperity, getting people out of poverty. That's what we're focusing on in our budget. Attack the root causes of poverty to break its cycle instead of simply treating its symptoms and making it easier to cope with. And that's what we fear the president's policies have done, and the results are we have the highest poverty rates we've had in a generation.
You know, I want to, obviously, as I said before, all of this becomes, in this season, intertwined with 2012 presidential politics. And last night on Special Report, Kirsten Powers had this to say about your alignment on the campaign trail and with your budget plan with Mitt Romney. Here's what she said.
In terms of the stark choice, yes, I think Democrats are really salivating, frankly, at the opportunity to go up against the Paul Ryan plan. I think that they see a lot of fertile ground there for them to go after.
How do you feel about the fact that your name may be associated with some of the attacks coming from the left against the candidate of your party?
I'm kind of getting used to it, to be honest with you, Martha. Look, we think we owe the country a choice. If we have a debt crisis in this nation, which the president is bringing us to, the Senate's not even budgeting for 3 years, the people who get hurt the first and the worst are the people who need government the most, the poor, the sick, the elderly. We want to prevent a debt crisis. We want to get back to job creation, economic growth, and prosperity. That's what our budget does. And so, look, we want this debate because we think the country should decide, what do you want America to be? What kind of people do you want us to be? Do you want to go down this path that the president's taking us down, debt in decline? Or do you want to get our spending and deficits and debt under control, get our economy growing again, and stop this growth of government where government sees its role as picking winners and losers in our society? That's not the American idea. We want to restore the American idea, get those principles that made us exceptional in the first place reapplied to the problems of the day. And yes, it is a choice of two futures, and Mitt Romney is very clearly giving the country that choice. Do you want President Obama's government-centered society, or do you want the opportunity society with a safety net that works? That's the choice here, and we're happy to have this debate.
Do you have any indication from the Romney camp that they want to do anything other than embrace this plan, continue to have you out on the campaign trail with them right next to him?
Look, I've campaigned with Mitt a lot. We've done a lot of Wisconsin. We're still working together. And yes, he's put out through his primary campaign tax reforms and budget reforms that clearly resemble what we're trying to do. Because I got to tell you, Martha, if you believe in free enterprise and limited government, upward mobility, then you'll have a budget that looks like this. We can't keep borrowing and spending and taxing like we are because we'll ruin the economy, and everybody will get hurt if that happens. So put aside all the hysterical rhetoric. Put aside all the name-calling that the president is doing in a very unpresidential way. The country has got a chance here, a window to prevent a debt crisis, and we need to take advantage of that.
Paul Ryan, always a pleasure to have you here in America's Newsroom. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon, sir. Take care.